As my mother always says, when you're in graveyards, the holy souls you're surrounded by will protect you. Well, at least that's what she said about the graveyard overlooking my house. Hi everyone, welcome back. It's Sinead here with Free Tours by FTBFLondon, and today we are getting back to our roots, ladies and gentlemen. Today I want to take you back to one of the Magnificent Seven. Now, for those of you that haven't seen our other tours, we've done Highgate, we've done Abney Park, and we've done West Brompton Cemetery. This today is Kensal Green Cemetery. All Souls at Kensal Green, and we are in the area of Queen's Park by Kensal Green Station in the borough of Kensington and Chelsea, the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea. Now, I want to show you this amazing garden of remembrance, ladies and gentlemen. Not only is it a place of rest and tranquility for the dead, but it is also a beautiful nature reserve and a place of remembrance and reflection for the living. A stunning part of London's history. I'm going to get right back into it. So let's get this show on the road and I'll show you exactly where we're going. Stay tuned. We're going to meet some amazing characters, some very famous people that have been buried here. Some stunning mausoleums, the Catacombs, the Anglican Church, the Crematorium, a lot to see, so stay tuned, folks. So I've just exited out of Kensal Green Station. Now, in order to get here today, I took the Bakerloo line from central London. It's just a very easy journey to the cemetery. This is College Road, and we're just taking a little stroll right down here, where we will cross the street very shortly. So this is probably one of the easier ones to get to. I mean, this one was built in 1833, so one of the first of the Magnificent Seven. But very quickly became a prominent place for people to be buried after the burial of three particular royals in here. So at the turn of the 19th century in the UK, with the industrialization of Britain, mass overcrowding, and the population swelled by almost 1.5 times. People came here thinking the streets were paved with gold, came to work on the railways and the factories, but mass overcrowding ensued. And with that came these horrendous slums with little or no sanitation, no running water. Garbage disposal was just on the streets. And as you can imagine, a lot of diseases ensued. With a high mortality rate, infant mortality rate, and a very lower age of life expectancy. And that with the outbreak of a very serious outbreak of cholera, 6,500 people needed to be buried immediately. A major problem was on the hands of the government, because not only was there no room for the living, there certainly was no room for the dead. Small church graveyards were literally bursting at the seams. But vicars would say, for example, bury nearly 40 bodies on top of each other in graves 40 feet deep. Some would even use quicklime to accelerate decomposition in order for these mass burial sites. And they even say that when it rained excessively, decaying body parts would float down the street. So something had to be done. And eventually the Cemetery Act was passed. So this Cemetery Act would build 7 huge Victorian Valhallas, almost like cemeteries, around the outskirts of Britain, around the outskirts of London. And this would accommodate the dead in this desperate crisis. But these stunning cemeteries became known as the Magnificent Seven. So automatically you are struck by the absolute peace in here. And as like all my other ones, you have the main busy road when you first come in, and then all of a sudden it's just this beautiful atmosphere in the area. But what I'm going to do is I want to take you first down towards the crematorium, and I want to show you the beautiful little crematorium churchyard, which is a memorial garden to the people that have been cremated inside this building. There are stunning mausoleums, so just give you an idea here, some of the more modern ones. The Familia Acerio, and we have the Familia Dionisa. These mausoleums we'll see, and even though it is a rather Gothic cemetery, you can see it's still an active cemetery. Some of the newer graves and the older ones make for a wonderful contrast. Now, we've known this for a long time, but graveyards tell stories to us. And those stories are usually written in stone, and you'll see the signs and symbols, and we'll see quite a few of them today, that tells us a little bit more about the person that's interred here. Now, it's estimated there's over 250,000 souls interred here, over 72 acres. Now, there is a section of the graveyard, I think it was about 16 acres, they kept aside for what were called dissenters. People, I guess, non-denominational, who were buried, and they have their own chapel on the grounds. Dissenters kind of distance themselves essentially from the Anglican Church, but still have a place of worship on the grounds here, and the remaining were laid out for the Church of England. I wanted to bring you around to this gorgeous little garden of remembrance that's there for those that had availed of the crematorium services. Now, one of the most famous, of course, that was cremated in here was Freddie Mercury. And for a while they had a plaque with his birth name. I believe it's Farouk. We'll put it up in the link anyway. I can't remember, and I'm so afraid to mispronounce it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm getting pulled quite a bit on my mispronunciation of certain languages. Another one was Ingrid Bergman, Pete Burns of 1980s pop fame. You Spin Me Right Round, if you remember that song. Apparently poor Pete Burns died penniless and broke, without even the cost of his own funeral, and everything was paid for by the wonderful Boy George of Culture Club, ladies and gentlemen. He paid for Pete Burns' funeral, and I believe his ashes are interred over here. And that's the crematorium on the site. There's a couple of more famous names. Oh yes, I just had to gather my thoughts. The actor Alan Rickman and Christine Keeler, who was involved in that very famous political scandal in the 1960s and 1970s. But take a little walk to the right here. Just inside this beautiful, peaceful garden of remembrance is where they commemorate. Some people choose to bury their urns of ashes. Others choose to scatter the ashes in this wonderful little place of reflection and remembrance. And people always ask me why I'm so quiet in graveyards. And I always get the usual comment, you can't wake the dead. But at the very least, I can let them sleep peacefully. It is a place of remembrance and reflection and worship, so it's more important that people have time to reflect without the need for me shouting all over. Look at this wonderful addition to the cemetery. A lovely little garden of remembrance and small plots where the scattered ashes, but an area you could come. We are surrounded by over 65,000 graves and 250,000 interments. So, albeit still not actually not congested, as it were, but this beautiful little area at the back before we head right in to the cemetery itself. So obviously these are some of the victims of World War I and World War II. It's a beautiful memorial commemorating the war dead. Now, not only is it a garden of remembrance, originally it was modelled on Père Lachaise, stunning cemetery in Paris that we've recently had a video put up with, wonderfully narrated by my colleague Margaret. So check that out, the cemetery of Oscar Wilde, Chopin, Edith Piaf, is it? I'm pretty sure she's there, and Jim Morrison. I've had the pleasure of visiting that cemetery myself. Right, now I wanted to show you right down the centre some of the oldest graves in the cemetery. The first one we're going to approach is this wonderful stainless steel and granite memorial garden. You may see it just straight ahead there, folks. That's where we're headed first, to talk about this stunning memorial to a very young boy who lost his life in tragic circumstances. Now, the Victorians took death very seriously. The idea was the more elaborate the funeral, and the longer the mourning period, and the more glamorous the mourners, the quicker the dead would be accepted into heaven or to eternal life, regardless of religion. So you will see in these amazing Victorian cemeteries some of the most elaborate mausoleums and tombs, and again the symbols. That gives us some information on stone as to the circumstances surrounding the deaths of these individuals. But I'm taking you around here, and we will visit maybe 4 to 5 of the graves in the area, but I want you to experience this as if you were just walking with me. And this is where we're headed first. This is the grave of a very young chap called Mehdi Oliver Mehra, and his memorial garden here is true testament to the pain and the anguish, various obvious anguish the family felt at his death. It's actually a riding accident. A couple of days after his 11th birthday, in 2014, he suffered fatal head injuries during a riding lesson, despite the fact the poor little boy was wearing a helmet. But right up here you'll see Mehra, 2014. And it is just the most beautiful memorial to this little boy, and as you can see, it is very well tended to. Fresh flowers, benches. I mean, truly spectacular. You can almost feel the pain of his parents saying goodbye. And there's a little statue of him, Mehdi Oliver Mehra, a little football and the fresh sunflowers. It's just divine. It's probably one of the nicest I've ever seen. You are our superhero and our inspiration. It will be a long life without you. 2014. Wow, not long after his 11th birthday. Yeah, it's hard not to be touched by this beautiful, beautiful little garden of remembrance. I know the family had set up a foundation for him on Facebook. He apparently had many's a pen pal in Ethiopia, and he wrote to them all, and that foundation now is supporting some of the poorer communities of which he had communication with. Sounded like such a wonderful little chap at that young age. Okay, onwards, ladies and gents. Now, as it's only been my third time here, I'm hoping I will remember where the graves are that I did find. So it gives you plenty of directions at all times. The cemetery chapel is this direction, and then you have the crematorium. And look at these wonderful tombs and monuments, folks. Very Gothic in nature. Elaborate tombs and mausoleums. Now the churches that we're going to visit both have catacombs underneath, and they do offer guided tours on Sundays here, and no doubt they'll give you the history of this spectacular place. Now, this is kind of unusual, but it is definitely symbolic. See, the head of the angel is taken off. So most of these columns, if you see them cut off at the top, it basically means a life cut very short. And that is obviously a life cut very short at the age of 47. Arms and head of the angel, that's something new to me. In the graveyard, if you tend to see a book on any of the graves, it's usually a wise or well-educated person. A broken column or the broken angel's head there kind of indicates somebody was cut down in the prime of their life. A cut flower is someone who died very young. If you see a lily, it's a pure and innocent person. Ivy usually represents, a bit like here, somebody very faithful. Harp or a violin, this person was a musician. So it's amazing how these graveyards can tell us stories as we're walking past. Another one is a wheat sheaf, if you see that. It's someone who died in their autumn years. A palette would be an artist, and sometimes you tend to see, so there's ivy there as well, you tend to see these theatrical masks, and that's representative of people who would have been worked in the theatre. This is such a tragic love story. Herbert William Allingham, who died in 1904, but his wife too died in 1904. So he was surgeon to the household of King Edward VII, the son of Queen Victoria, and later to the Prince of Wales, who was later to become King George V. A tragic story where the surgeon contacted syphilis in an operation and working in an operation in 1903. He further infected his wife, who then died of syphilis in 1904, and you see her laying beneath him, lying down there on the stone. And he was so depressed and so devastated at the loss of his wife. He took so much blame for that loss. He eventually ended up dying himself of an overdose of morphine in 1904, only 10 months after the death of his wife, so no doubt just couldn't live with the guilt and the upset and the torture of being without her. They're both buried here together for eternity, hopefully resting in peace now. So we'll move further along here. We'll see if we can pick up some of that imagery and symbolism along the way. There's the ivy creeping up. Now, you'll see some of the more elaborate ones coming up here, but I want to take you up to see the church, because there are some very famous royal burials here, which immediately made it exceptionally popular with the very wealthy. But all ages and all demographics are buried beneath the chapel. There's also a Catholic church cemetery just as you come inside the door. But I can't help but thinking how amazing these places were. Do we even have them anymore in this day and age? Magnificent Seven is truly one of these special places to visit in London, all on the outskirts of London. See the urn there as well, folks. I always tell about this too, with the cloth draped over it. That's just to leave enough space for the spirit to release through the urn and head straight to the wonderful paradise in the sky. Here is, obviously, in the Victorian times they were obsessed with Egyptology, so you'll see a lot of obelisks here as well. Now, one of our first royal burials we're going to come across is the mausoleum of His Royal Highness the Duke of Cambridge. KG, the symbol of the Knights of the Garter. Now, he was also Commander-in-Chief of the British Army and a grandson of King George III and a cousin of Queen Victoria. It was actually believed his uncle, William IV, brought the Duke to Windsor in the hope of an eventual marriage, an arranged marriage, between him and his cousin, at the time, Princess Victoria of Kent, who was 2 months younger than him. However, that was blocked by Victoria's maternal uncle, Leopold I of Belgium. He secured Victoria's marriage to Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha at the time. And they went on to have a very happy, love-filled marriage. So, His Royal Highness, the Duke of Cambridge, the Chief of the British Army, Knights of the Order of the Garter. Now let's continue on. We'll see another relative of his coming up shortly. But in the meantime, look at this one. Look how beautiful is that? General Sir Alfred Hastings. I'm trying to read it, folks. Oh, he was a member of the Horse Guards, the King's Horse Guard, GCB. And here we have another chap called William Smealy Graham, and a memory of his wife Anne. This is quite a familiar theme as well, these little bollards around the graves. And we'll see one such in a moment. I saw this, I thought it was quite poignant. This pink cardigan, was it left there intentionally? I don't know, there's weird things that you come up with. Charlotte Graverly Blondin and Jean-Francois Cravelet Blondin. Ealing, beautiful tomb and memorial to them. Okay, so this is the Anglican Church, and apparently they do organise. You can sometimes get guided tours down into the catacombs. Now, it's under extensive renovation, as you can see. I'm sorry that I can't bring you around these beautiful colonnades. And underneath them, a vast burial site. Anything you can see down there, which is quite creepy. Ooh, the steps down into it, ladies and gents, of which it's all closed up. You can just make out the grave on the left-hand side. But let me take you around here. Let me show you one of these stunning graves in this area, dedicated to another member of the royal household who, upon research, a little bit further research, a rather tragic existence as well. She is right around the front here. I'm going to talk a little bit about Princess Sofia. So you can imagine if we could only walk in around there. It's a shame. It's completely blocked off, folks. And this one, the Dissenters Chapel, is on the other side, so hopefully we'll get around there shortly as well. What a wonderful place to rest. I have also noticed This one is a lot quieter than the others I visited. Now there tends to be a few people around today, but I kind of got lost in here myself a couple of days ago. Now usually I don't find these places eerie, but that's usually because there's so many other people around, but alas, you're with me, so I'm fine. As my mother always says, when you're in graveyards, the holy souls you're surrounded by will protect you. Well, at least that's what she said about the graveyard overlooking my house, which I have one right behind my house. A lot of my friends are a bit weirded out by it, but she changed the whole perception in my head. Only a way a mother can. Come unto me, all ye that labour and are heavy laden, and I will be your rest, give you rest. This is the tomb of Princess Sofia. So Princess Sofia was the 5th daughter of King George III and Queen Charlotte. Sophia's father, actually, King George III, was very involved in the upbringing of his daughters. It's widely regarded that he liked his daughters more than he liked his sons. However, the daughters widely feared their mother. She was quite controlling. And when Princess Sophia's father further descended into madness, bless him, he suffered from a liver disease called protheria. It eventually affected his brain. He became so mentally incapacitated he couldn't perform his duties as king. But their controlling mother leaned heavily on the girls. Now, although there was many potential suitors, she never married, but she was dogged with scandal. It is suggested that she had an illegitimate son with one of the chief equerries of the king. And his name was Major General Thomas Garth. Years later, he did accept responsibility for the child, but there was also another very vicious rumour that Sophie's allegedly had an incestuous relationship, not one she was very happy with her 5th brother, Ernest Augustus, the Duke of Cumberland. He appeared to have an unnatural interest in his sister, and some say that the child was actually his. Now, years later, some suggested these were vicious rumours or political rumours against the king that had been put out, but eventually she ended her days staying in Kensington Palace next door to her niece, her favourite niece, Princess Victoria. Now, she died blind, and unfortunately she also fell under the controlling hands of Sir John Conroy, who had also attempted to control Queen Victoria. And rather sad and tragically, when she did pass away, she didn't have much of an estate left to bequeath, because Sir John Conroy had managed her finances for years and had squandered most of her fortune. So she had insisted on being laid to rest here, but she also liked the idea of being laid to rest right across the way from the tomb of her brother, surrounded again by these columns you see here. This was the tomb of her brother, who was laid to rest here in 1843, 5 years prior to Princess Sophia. Prince Augustus Frederick, Duke of Sussex. He was the 6th son and 9th child of George III and Queen Charlotte. He was actually the only surviving son that didn't pursue any military or navy career, but he was known for his liberal views as well. We like the idea of this guy. He became actively involved in reforming Parliament and was a key member in the abolition of slavery and Catholic emancipation. So Prince Augustus Frederick, Duke of Sussex, he was laid to rest in 1843, right across the way from his beloved sister, who died 5 years later. I'll just give you a little bit of the outline of that. So that's some of the key royal burials in the area. But let's walk up here. Now, this actual avenue here is spectacular. Just thoroughly enjoyed this part of the cemetery when I came here the last day. And this will give you an idea more of the Victorian graves at the time. The continual theme of the obelisk and the urn with the draped cloth halfway draped over. See this beautiful Eliza heart. Lovely little stone reflections of these immortalized in death by this wonderful nature reserve, which also is home to 33 different species of bird and animals in the park. So a wonderful place to visit. Now, as mentioned, we've already done Avenue Park, West Brompton Cemetery, Highgate Cemetery, and of course we're now here at Kensal Green. So we've yet to visit the Tower Hamlets one, Nunhead Cemetery and West Norwood. But of course it is a fitting time to visit these cemeteries and to visit the dead, as we are heading into the spooky season of Halloween. We have a lot of stuff planned for the next month, including a ghost tour, ladies and gentlemen. I don't want to spoil the surprise because I don't want to give away any of my spooky ideas to other YouTubers who might be listening in. It's a cutthroat world out there, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my God, look at the magnificent image there on the side. Wow. Charles Herbert. I mean, we all think about impending death. Eventually, it will come to us all. That's the one thing we all have in common here. But if you were laid to rest as peacefully as these people are, and I get absolutely no sense of anybody not resting here peacefully and happy in their eternal life. That's just my own sense. But it's not hard to be completely overcome by the tranquility of the place. It's one of our live cut short poems. Looks like an amazing Egyptian, almost Egyptian style tomb. Plenty of symbolism on there, folks. We have the Sphinx on the left. Again, they were obsessed with Egyptology in the Victorian era. This wonderful tomb here. Now there is method in my madness. I am in search of another grave I wanted to show you. Tell you a little bit about the history of it. What will be coming up shortly. Pretty sure it's coming up here actually. This one is absolutely spectacular over here. This one took my breath away when I first saw it. This one here on the right hand side. And this is to Anne, daughter of Edmund and Eliza Harriet Molyneux. Look at that. Shows you truly how people mourned their own family members. This one here, 4 angels on top. Now I feel, oh yes, here it is coming up. This is the one I wanted to show you folks as well. Right up here on the right hand side. Things are at the moment going according to plan, but I no doubt will lose my way shortly, but that's okay too. It's not a bad place to lose your way in. Now, ladies and gentlemen, so this is Major General, the Honorary Sir William Casement of the Bengal Army and a member of the Supreme Council of India. And you'll see traditional Bengalis dressed in traditional dress, holding up the urn, holding up the roof here, as it were. There's another one right across from there I wanted to show you. And this is of a chap called William Mulready. He was a wonderful London-based Irish artist and illustrator. And you'll see he's laid to rest on a mat of woven straw, his head resting, and the carvings down here are depictions of his life, ladies and gents. William Mulready, a wonderful dedication to him. Now we're going to get a little lost here because I'm going looking for two more particular graves I want to show you. But here we have Patrick O'Brien's gorgeous tomb. I mean, it really is so peaceful here, lovely ladies and gents. I mean, some of my more recent videos I've been surrounded by thousands and thousands of people commemorating the Queen's funeral and all the ceremonies surrounding the new King Charles III. And it is a welcome change always to come back here to cemeteries, which I absolutely love. Right, I'll be right back. Just gonna hop, skip and a jump to another of the more famous graves in the cemetery. Haven't yet been to this one, but this is without a question of doubt one of the most popular graves and the most requested grave in Kensal Green. And we're just going to head down here right now and show you one of the most famous men in, well, British history. In 2002, he was awarded the title of the number 2 in the top 100 Britons of all time, second only to Winston Churchill. And we're here to commemorate the grave of Isambard Kingdom Brunel, famous civil engineer, and his father, Sir Mark Isambard Brunel, 19th century civil engineer and a prolific developer during the Industrial Revolution. He was famous in his early career actually as a designer and builder of bridges, but I suppose he became the chief engineer on his greatest achievement, which was the Great Western Railway, which was launched in 1838. He was a heavy smoker, unfortunately, though, and kidney failure eventually contributed to a stroke he died from at a young age. I think he was only about 53 actually when he died. His father also had suffered the same fate. He died too of a stroke. But their achievements are all over London, ladies and gentlemen. There's statues of Isambard Kingdom Brunel, one on the embankment. It was the greatest achievement of his father, Sir Mark Isambard Brunel, was the building of the Thames Tunnel, which his son took over under his father's supervision. I believe also, there's kind of a trivia, he was also the first, as a young boy at the age of 5, to pass under the tunnel. His Isambard Kingdom Brunel other achievements include the Clifton Suspension Bridge, the Albert Bridge, Maidenhead Railway Bridge, and he also made outstanding contributions to the marine industry and marine engineering. 3 of his grandest ships were the Great Western, the Great Britain and the Great Eastern. Each at the time of its launch were the largest in the world. So buried here alongside pretty much his entire family, a very modest memorial to the Brunels, one of the most visited and requested graves in Kensal Green, folks. Now, there's over 62 acres So regretfully we're not going to be able to cover all of them, but we can definitely have a little look around and just see a few more of the tombs. But that's some of the more famous that grabbed my interest in here. And no doubt you could wander for hours on end. And there's pathways leading to either side, some old and some new, but a very easy one to get to, ladies and gents. And we will take you back up along here. I see this beautiful, what is that? Almost like a very quirky top of that headstone there. It's like a wild branches of tree, but it's quite quirky, isn't it? It's quite beautiful. I'm going to have a little wander around here, folks, for the rest of my day. Thank you for joining me on this little short ramble around another of the Magnificent Seven. I have noticed a lot of you have commented how different these Victorian graveyards are to those in your relevant countries, so please don't forget to comment and let me know what significant differences you see between the graveyards in your country and the ones here in London. And thank you all most sincerely for all your words of encouragement and support during a lot of filming following the tragic passing of Her Majesty the Queen. As you will see, a lot of our videos may need to be updated as I refer to her in pretty much all of them. And for those of you joining us, thank you most sincerely for joining us. If you have any friends you think would enjoy the channel, folks, I have to confess I'm really excited, but desperately near and looking forward to reaching 100,000 subscribers, which is unbelievable to us here, to the team at Free Tours by Foot, that we've made it this far. So thank you enormously for all your continued support. Now, of course, all our public tours are available to you all on the Free Tours by Foot London website, and I have been receiving an amazing amount of requests for private tours, and some of you are wondering how to book me for private tours. On all our videos there is a link attached in the description which gives you a list of all our public tours and a link to specifically contact me about a private tour in London. Put that on your list. I would be delighted to meet you. I've been having enormous fun with some of you. Blake and Cinnamon, Victoria, Kathy, wonderful Mark and Jenny. So drop me a line, come see me. But for right now, ladies and gents, I'm going to head out here. But thank you again for joining me. Sinead signing out here with Free Tours by Foot London in the wonderfully spiritual and hauntingly peaceful Kensal Green Cemetery. Thanks for joining me.